So welcome back everyone to our second hashtag Hire Me 2022 guest speaker panel series hosted by bcjobs.ca. My name's Chelsea, your BC Jobs host for today's panel. So this winter, we are hosting a panel every 3 weeks where we have 3 special guest speakers from various sectors join us for a Q&A on what's new with their organizations and to talk a bit about the job market and hiring. And as you may know, BC Jobs is Western Canada's biggest online jobs board. And in addition to this guest speaker panel series, we also offer annual career fairs. Our next one will hopefully be in the spring. So we're looking at April, but more details will be released soon. You can also check out our Innovators podcast to hear more about what industry leaders are saying. Okay, we've got one more person. Michael's coming back in here. Welcome back, Michael. Okay. Before we get started here today, I just want to encourage the audience to type your questions in the chat box for our guest speaker. We will get to your questions kind of like towards the end of our panel today. So mid to end, we'll get to your questions. We do our best to answer all the questions in the chat. So feel free to start putting your questions in there, and then I'll just get to them in order when it comes to our Q&A. We also have a pitch event today. So after we have some questions from our speakers, we'll do a little pitch event. So during this pitch event, you have the chance to pitch yourself in 30 seconds to our guest panelists. So what you would say in 30 seconds would be something about yourself. This could be, for example, like, if you're a student, you can talk about what you're studying and what kind of role you're looking for. If you're currently in a job and you're looking to change out of the job, you can talk about that. And always talk about what skills you have. So, what kind of work you're looking for, what kind of work you're doing, and what kind of skills that you've sharpened. So you'll have a chance to pitch yourself to our guest speakers in a little bit, and I'll let you know at the time when we're ready for that, and you can put some information about yourselves in the chat, and I'll just pick the first 3 people to pitch themselves to our guest speakers. Okay, so more about that to come. And there is a prize. I forgot to mention that. There is a prize, and the person with the best pitch will get a 30-minute free resume consultation with me. So that is one of the prizes for the best pitch today. So something to think about, and we'll come back to that in a little while. Okay, so let's get some introductions going here. I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to Charlene Fothergill, Senior HR Business Partner at CTO.ai and Mogo. Shirley, welcome to our panel, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me, and congratulations for being in this room as people who are looking for jobs and learning about being job seekers. Engaging in these kind of activities is wonderful. So you should give yourself a little pat on the back for taking a great step forward. So I have a bit of a varied background. I mean, I essentially have been in Canada's tech startup scene for the past decade. I used to run a VC-backed accelerator program. I was the founding director of career services with Lighthouse Labs. So lots of experience working with job seekers, specifically trying to help them get jobs in tech. And then I actually recently went out on my own as a HR consultant, and I do HR consulting for a bunch of different companies, mostly tech startups here in Canada, as well as I actually am working for a client right now in the UK. If anyone has any NFT gaming experience, ping me. I'm hiring for a few positions there. And my 2 big clients here in Vancouver that you probably have heard of are CTO.ai and Mogo. And basically CTO.ai is a platform that helps automate the DevOps process. So super, super technical product, but obviously we hire sales and marketing folks too. And then Mogo is a fintech company that has a variety of products to help you reduce your debt and better manage and save your money. And I've been helping out with them full-time in the last little bit as well. So it's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Next over, I'd like to introduce Claudia Ivanova, Head of Human Resources. Claudia, you were on our panel last summer, so it's great to see you again. And please tell us a little bit about your background.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me back. Really excited to be here. My name is Claudia Ivanova, and I am the head of human resources at FISPAN. So FISPAN is the market leader in ERP banking. So our turnkey platform makes it simple for banks to offer business banking services embedded in any business application. So we've been in operation since 2016, and we have just over 100 employees worldwide now. And I work very closely with my team of 3 on the people side, helping to recruit and retain our top talent. But very excited to be here again and really excited to answer your questions.
Awesome. So glad to have you back. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome Jessie Dallin, Human Resources Director at Piranha Games. Also, so lovely to see you again, Jessie. You were on our panel back in the fall, so welcome back. And yeah, please share with us a bit about your backstory.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. Always nice to be here. So I work for Piranha Games. We're an action-based gaming studio here in BC, part of the larger ENAD Global 7 group as of February of 2021, I think. Yeah. I'm losing track of time with the remote working because I don't leave like the same little area a lot, it seems.
It
But
all blurs together.
yeah, I am senile now. But anyhow, as some of you may recognize some of the titles we've worked on, Mech Warrior being one. We revived that series. We've done Duke Nukem and Need for Speed. Way back in the day, there was a Die Hard title. We've done a number of like products for Bass Pro, things of that nature. And we do have some exciting things happening now. However, as games are, usually we're not at liberty to say until they're announced. So
Great.
stay tuned for that. I took my first job in the game development industry back in 2001. I've been in this business for a very long time, and I've been in human resources because, I very much enjoy the business side of things for about 14 years now. So a while. We are doing some hiring in the foreseeable future, and we have just kind of decided to move to a 100% virtual model, which is not helping my senility from not leaving the house. But, a lot of people really enjoy that. So we're that's how things are for the moment, and we're kind of looking to the future there. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, Jessie. And now that we feel like we know our panel speakers a little bit better, I've got a few of my own questions that I'm going to start us off with today before we move over to the pitch event and the audience Q&A. So these next questions, they're geared more towards like what's new at your companies in 2022, but I've also thrown in a couple questions under the theme of networking. So I'll start off with Claudia. So Claudia, FISPAN, which is a contextual business banking platform, has seen tremendous growth over the past few years. And we want to know, like, what are some things that you're excited for 2022?
Definitely. And I guess you kind of already said it, but growth, that is a big thing happening at our organization right now. I'm really excited to see what 2022 will bring on that side. We're expected to hire about 50 more employees this year, but in the past few years, we have experienced that growth, and it's been really cool to see how our teams start to distinguish themselves in the company and see the innovative products and features that our teams are able to come up with. So having that growth and seeing what those additional team members are able to do is really exciting. And I guess also last year, we had the opportunity to support employees across the world using a global employment company. And I think this year we'll probably be hiring even more people in different countries. So I think that's going to be really exciting to see and be able to give us a more diverse workforce with people with different ideas, with different backgrounds. So I'm really excited for that this year.
That is exciting. Yeah, that's big news. Awesome. My next question here is for Charlene. So CTO.ai, which is a computer software startup based here in Vancouver, is currently hiring from all over the world as well as FISPAN, it sounds like. And what would you recommend to job candidates outside of Canada?
Yeah, so for sure. So I mean, in regards to, tips and tricks for applying for jobs, it's really the same process. But I think specifically for those folks that are considering working for a company outside of their home country, regardless if that's Canadians looking outwards, really have a think about what that means. Right now, we've all been locked in our homes. we don't have much of a social life going on, time zones like working late or getting up early, maybe not a big issue. What else do you have to do on Friday night when we've been in lockdown consistently every 4 to 6 months for 2 years now? But all that stuff's going to change. So just really make sure you have a think about what that means. That means that there is no office to ever go to. If you are in a remote part of the world where there isn't a home base of any sort, you aren't going to get to fly in for that Christmas party necessarily. You aren't going to get those quarterly team brainstorms. Your interaction with your company is really going to be online, and that can be very effective, but it may not be for everyone. So just have a real think about what you want and how you want to work, and if that is actually a fit for you. Because as we're hearing the pros and cons of working from home, if you're going to take that remote job, that's what you're signing up for the long haul. And so just have a real think about that. And then if you are kind of approaching it from the place of maybe wanting to immigrate, the best advice I can do is become an expert in your own immigration. Don't go into those job interviews with the HR person and just kind of be like, yeah, I want to immigrate, and I totally expect you to kind of hand that to me. Do your research. Again, make sure that's the decision if you want to broach that subject, and just be fully prepared. So just some things to consider as the world is shifting, and it's okay to go, I want to work in an office again one day, at least part of the time. So just making sure we're making not short-term decisions in a short-term situation.
These are all excellent tips. Thank you, Charlene. My next question here is for Jesse. So Piranha Games is a local Vancouver action gaming studio, going strong now for 22 years. Wow. And we just want to know, what's 2022 looking like in terms of hiring and remote working for you guys?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we downsized. We just simply don't need the space that we had. Made the decision to do that. We opened, as of yesterday, actually a very small location in Burnaby. Somebody said they were in Burnaby. But yeah, I mean, people are welcome to go there if they like. There's very limited space. Once it gets unpacked, it's really just housing our equipment, and somewhere to have as an operating location. That being said, someday we do hope to return to at least kind of a half and half situation and have an office facility, but it's not a requirement for us to do that right now. In terms of our hiring, we've continued to hire consistently over the last couple of years. I think we've added 30 headcount or something like that in the last 2 years, which for an 80-person company is significant. We plan to continue to do that on a move forward. And these are all in areas, software engineering, design, level design, UI design for games, some artists, things of that nature. So that being said, in terms of hiring for location, we do want everybody eventually in British Columbia, regardless of where you are. We're very open to people going for extended periods of time to work elsewhere. Obviously, if you're going outside the country, you have a maximum of 90 days there to do that before you lose your residency, or at least some of the things that come with it. Anybody who we do hire abroad. We've done that on contract periods initially. However, we are immigrating everybody because there's a very big operational difference for an employer, particularly an employer that deals with so much intellectual property and licensed intellectual property, as to having an employee versus having external contractors abroad. So, we are offering that, and we do offer kind of the full suite of support there when it comes to relocation and immigration. And same with our Canadian employees that exist in different provinces or reside in different provinces right now. We will be expecting them to relocate someday, however, at their convenience at this point. A lot of them are coming here just because they want to be here and they have the relocation package, but it really is up to them. So it's all very up in the air and fluid at the moment. It's like, oh, yes, do it in your own time. We have people that are going home and visiting family for, a month at a time. I did this myself. I grew up in southern New Brunswick and went home for like 2 months at one point. So it's, it's very flexible. But eventually we do want to see everybody in BC again.
Nice. Well, that's really good to know about Piranha Games. All right. My next question is going to go back to Claudia here. So Claudia, fintech is a booming area in the tech world. What would you recommend to our job candidates in terms of networking to get their foot in the door of the fintech industry?
That's a good question. And especially when things are remote and a little bit different now. So I think what I've seen work really well is being open to attending events, kind of like this one, putting yourself out there. When you're open to new possibility, it tends to be easier to find something. So my advice is to attend events, check out virtual or in-person networking events, meet someone new. And you can even have a goal of talking to one person, having one meaningful conversation. It doesn't have to be crazy, just that one person, because it really comes down to you just need one person, one employer to find yourself in a good job that you love. So it'd be one thing. And I guess another idea could be to connect with people on LinkedIn. I find a lot of people on LinkedIn. I myself reach out to the human resources community, for example, just to have that kind of network and bounce ideas off people. So maybe reach out to someone, ask them if they're willing to go for a coffee chat or virtual coffee chat, learn more about their journey in the tech industry or whatever industry they're in. And I found that this can really go a long way. So you get to know the person, you can learn some tips and tricks, and they might actually turn it around and ask you what you're looking for. They might be hiring themselves, they might know someone who's hiring. So just be open to those new possibilities and reach out, kind of get out of your comfort zone.
Awesome. Excellent tips. Thanks for sharing that. All right, my next question is going to go over to Charlene here, and this one will be about Mogo. So Mogo is a fintech company also based out of Vancouver, which has a team of over 200. And we want to know, is your team spread out across Canada or just out of the Lower Mainland? And how does everyone stay connected at Mogo?
Yes. Yeah, so absolutely. So Mogo is absolutely spread out across Canada. We have our head office in Vancouver. So we still have the office. We haven't made any permanent decisions there, but a big, beautiful office at 401 West Georgia, right downtown. But we've always had a really large team in Manitoba. We also have a team in Quebec and a team in Ontario. So we have good, solid offices representation across Canada. So yeah, in staying in touch, I mean, for larger companies, especially for me, Mogo with about 400 people total, and probably the largest company I've ever worked for because I'm such a startup kid. But yeah, for larger companies, staying in touch really becomes about staying in touch with certain groups, right? So at CTO.ai, there's 40 of us. We are spread around the world, but there's only 40 of us. And some of them are also like subcontractors in Mexico who work a little bit differently with our team. So when there's so many people, it really becomes about connecting with your group. So it's really common to have a connection with your department and your team. So if you're on the dev team or the design team or on the people and culture team, we have meetings, Zoom meetings, we have Slack channels, we have emails, and we have fun little things on Slack that we stay in touch with. And then there's also, in your larger team, there's often staying in touch with folks in your region. So for Vancouver, very large office. So probably not the whole Vancouver team getting together very often, but Montreal is, we actually acquired a company from Montreal. So there was already kind of a team that was really close and working together and, pre-COVID times, they get together as kind of a Montreal team. And so that kind of getting together and staying in touch just kind of gets segmented when you're in a larger company. We mostly use Slack, actually, both at CTO.ai and at Mogo. Slack is a really great, powerful tool. We have a lot of fun on Slack. We have fun Slack channels. So there's like foodie channels where it's like, okay to take pictures of your dinner. There's pet channels, there's outdoors channels, there's the plant lovers channels. So, we've kind of created those channels where folks can kind of be themselves and kind of share their interests. And then for Mogo, like connect with maybe people they wouldn't connect with otherwise. We also have a real fun culture, especially at CTO.ai, being a smaller company. We use a lot of GIFs, GIFs. I don't know how old I am. So kind of there's like a good fun Slack plugin where we do that. We've like created custom emojis that we were like a lot of like anytime someone posts something, there's always the emoji response to kind of indicate that you've read it. So there's that kind of culture that happens. We also use a tool called Donut at both companies where it randomly pairs different people in the company. So again, CTO.ai, less exciting because we talk to these people pretty much every week, but at Mogo, just, you get a chance to be like in customer success and you're paired to talk to someone in P&C. And it's just a casual 20-minute conversation just about with some icebreakers and stuff. So yeah, there's lots of ways to stay in touch. And also like, for me, I always just kind of like, although we're all like, oh, this is the new way of working and the new normal, I've always worked for companies that were across Canada, like even if they're smaller, like they don't have to be 1,000-person companies. My first company I worked for was 150 people across Canada, and I was the HR person for Vancouver. And then I was also responsible for a small office in Edmonton and Calgary. And so just that reminder that like, we know how to connect as humans, even when we're not in the same place. You know, back in the day, like I used to talk for hours on the phone with my girlfriends, and we've kind of picked that back up, which I actually really love. It's been really cool. So yeah, I mean, I was just kind of like to context that, like, you know, this isn't, we're not inventing and innovating really anything. This has always existed. Business has always been done across different locations. And sometimes when we just kind of think of it that way, it becomes less scary, less complicated, less change. And it's just like, oh yeah, we know how to do this. And there's playbooks to draw from.
Love it. Love your answer. All right. My last question here is for Jessie. How important is LinkedIn networking for you for finding new talent for Piranha Games? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I will say I'm on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I personally, I don't use LinkedIn a whole lot,
Okay.
mainly because the amount of noise, 90% of the messages I get on LinkedIn are just a salesperson trying
Mhm.
to reach out to me about something that I don't actually need or something unsolicited. So it's really hard to break through that noise. I do, however,
Mhm.
have a recruiter though, and she uses
Mhm.
LinkedIn as a tool.
Okay.
I know that she'll actually mine candidates off LinkedIn. I know that she actually will like speak to people. We do refer people. When I actually get a chance to go through the hundreds of messages in my LinkedIn inbox.
Oh
I
gosh.
do forward them off, the ones that are appropriate.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is something that we use. However, she uses it more than me. So,
Mhm.
not the best way to get a hold of me. Emailing the company is the best way to get a hold of me, to be honest. And we do have that information on our website. I am the person on the receiving end of most of our general inboxes as well. Just small company, we do lots of things, but so you know, somebody will read that and it will get forwarded on. We have a recruiting email as well, like that actually does go to people. So
Mhm.
we're not super reliant on it, but good way to connect with my recruiter. Her name's Janet Bang, and she is there. Really, when it comes to searching for candidates, though, there's other online platforms that are more useful for us as a game development company. For artists, one of them being ArtStation, you know, our
Mhm.
engineers on GitHub, Stack Overflow, a lot of these kind of niche sites that are specific to our environment. So, yeah.
Cool. Maybe Jessie, could you put those names in the chat? I've never heard of them before. ArtStation, you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
ArtStation. Anybody who does these things would be pretty familiar
Okay.
with this. It's pretty
I'm just the one
standard.
in the dark, I guess. But perfect. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
really good to
Oh,
know. So these are good resources. Awesome. Well, thanks
yeah.
so much for sharing that. Yeah, I learned something new. Um, well, thank you so much, Claudia, Shirley, and Jessie, for answering all of my questions from BC Jobs. It was great to know more about your companies and the exciting things that you're up to this year. Next, before we dive into questions from the audience, I want to just provide an opportunity for the pitch event here. So for our pitch event, I'll just type in some instructions into the chat here. So if you want to join the pitch event and pitch yourselves in 30 seconds to our guest speakers, let us know your name, location, and years of experience. I'm just typing all this into the chat, making sure there's no spelling mistakes. Oh, there's something on my keyboard. And an area of expertise. Okay, so for the pitch event, yeah, in the chat box, just type your name, location, years of experience, and area of expertise. And I'll just pick the first 3 people who are brave enough to put their names into the chat box, and then they will have an opportunity to pitch themselves. So in a pitch, you can talk about, I mean, obviously you're talking about yourself, but you can talk about your experience. You can talk about your studies if you're a student. You can talk about the skills you have, and you can talk about, for example, if you're transitioning to a new industry, you know, why you're transitioning and what you hope to get out of that. So in the chat, feel free to put your name, location, years of experience, and area of expertise, and I'll just pick the first 3 people. And there is a prize. So the prize is you get to spend 30 minutes with me going over your resume and LinkedIn profile, and you know, having just honing some details on there for when you submit your resume to different companies. So yeah, that is the prize. And I've already met with several job candidates over the past few months, and it's been really great to meet people and to see their resumes and see all the different experiences they have. So, okay, we've got a couple brave people. So, Mike, you put your name in first, and then Jeff. Okay, so Mike, why don't you jump on camera here, and feel free to unmute your mic and give us your 30-second pitch to our panel speakers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for
welcome.
inviting me out, and I appreciate it so much. And I'll be totally honest, I apologize if I go over 30 seconds. I am so new to this industry, and I wasn't even expecting to come on here tonight. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I wasn't even expecting to come on here tonight. I just got an email, and I was like, that sounds very interesting and cool, so I figured I'd come check it out. I currently work as a part-time actor and freelance video editor. At the moment, I'm obviously looking for something a little bit more stable. Which is why I've been kind of out and about and job searching and hunting. On the more creative side, because I do see that this is a fintech related talk. So I am not educating myself on NFTs, everything cryptocurrency. I find it very interesting and fascinating, especially as a creative person myself. And seeing, let's be honest, all this news about people making a lot of money selling NFT art. I find that super fascinating, but I'm not expecting that to happen to me. However, I do look at it as just a very neat place to dive into. So I'm in the process of making my own NFT art, and I'm hoping to release it next week.
Awesome. Very interesting. And where are you calling in from this evening? I see it's nighttime on your end, Michael.
Yes. Currently, I'm in Peterborough, Ontario.
Oh, okay. Nice. And I don't know if any of our guest panelists had any follow-up questions for you before we move over to our next pitcher.
What would your dream job be? You've got a wide variety of skills. You're an artist. You're doing different things. Not to pigeonhole you, but what kind of jobs are you applying for? What kind of where would you like to get your foot in the door?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my policy is always honesty. So my dream job would be to win an Academy Award, for get an Oscar and stay on that stage. And that's just my honest answer. That's been my lifelong goal for a long time. So if that takes me until the age of 60, it might not happen at all, but that's one thing I'll continuously strive for. Realistically speaking, I have to pursue other things on the side. So essentially anywhere within like the advertising, marketing, or even, I know saying creative is very vague in general, but I definitely would love to kind of get my foot in the door within a creative industry, whether that's continuously working with, video editing or video creation, things like that. I would absolutely love that opportunity. So I am just trying to do anything within that area to gain more knowledge, educate myself, etc. So
Loved your answer.
I was going to say the good news is that industry is ripe for freelancers. So for someone who's looking for that flexibility to pursue your acting, as well as, got to pay your bills in the meantime before that big Oscar endorsement deals come rolling in. Yeah, that's great. And the key to freelancing is a lot of connection. So you're in the right spot in doing networking, because freelancing is all about connection and building your network. And then offering up what you can do in that kind of part-time freelance. And sometimes it leads into longer term contracts, and sometimes they're one-offs, but you're in the right spot. So good for you. And good for you for being so brave on the first call.
Yes. Thank you for standing up and being our first pitch candidate. All right. Our next pitch candidate is Jeff. Jeff, do you want to jump on camera, and you can unmute yourself and let us know a bit about yourself? Nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you. Pretty nervous. It's my first time doing this online.
It's okay. We're all pretty easygoing.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Jeff, and I'm in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I recently graduated Lighthouse Lab Bootcamp, and nice. I used to be an automotive technician at 3 dealers. But now I'm trying to challenge myself, getting into IT industry as a full stack dev. And I'll say my main technical skills are JavaScript, React, Node, and Ruby on Rails, and Python, Django. And thank you for your time. I guess this is the shortest I got.
Good, great job, Jeff.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just hop in here. Jeff, very, very nice to meet you. What made you change interest from automotive to kind of software development? What made you change there?
As a technician, you have to follow up the new technology every year. Every new car comes in, and you have to solve the specific problem according to their customers. And I realized that with the fast-moving world, I could challenge myself. And I've been I was a mechanic for almost six, 7 years. So I needed some challenge for the future and myself as well. So that made me to move forward. And also, I like fixing problem and solving it. So I think it's a great non-technical qualification of myself. So I decided the IT industry.
That's fantastic, and really good for you for doing the Lighthouse Labs program. I think that's amazing, putting yourself out there for that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing a bit about yourself today. And so Jeff and Mike, keep an eye out for an email from me inviting you both to a resume consultation with BC Jobs. All right, I think we can open up the floor here to general questions from our audience. And feel free, you can put your question in the chat or you can raise your hand. I believe for those of you, if you want to raise your hand, if you go to the bottom of your screen and you see the little smiley face with the reactions, if you click on that, there's the raised hand option in there. So feel free to raise your hand. Okay, see, we got a question already from Misha. Misha, go ahead and ask your question. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, I will say that now, well, I've basically, with what Michael was talking about earlier, I have been basically freelancing since about 2019-ish when I since graduating 2018 from game design school. And that's kind of why I was looking to talk with, like Piranha, because I do want to work more in games now. And I have gotten a kind of a small 6-month contract with a studio on the East Coast that does kind of various virtual reality experiences now, just starting out. But maybe what you would recommend to kind of keep myself kind of going with them and just kind of make sure I showcase the best of my talents and skills and get recognition. And then my hope, of course, is that if I ideally would like to work for them as long as I need to, but if say I wanted to transition to work for a studio like Piranha, what would they look for after that, right? From the work experience that I've done, and more so when it comes to working under NDAs and stuff, because I have also worked on small freelance contracts that were under NDA, and unfortunately some of the projects, they fall to the wayside, because of the pandemic or just financial reasons, because I'm working with small teams that don't have a lot of money capital. So what is your kind of recommendation along all of that?
Sorry, that last part you cut out a bit. Can you repeat that for me? Just the last piece.
Yeah, about kind of working with small NDAs and how to showcase the work and talk about it in a logical way, right? Especially for small projects where maybe it was an indie project and it never got completed, but or for medium-sized projects that I was only there for a long enough time for the project not to be fully released, you see, because that's also my concern too when it comes to working for games, is they expect to have a published title under your belt, but sometimes that is not always easy to do, especially working on small and indie projects and long-winded projects where you're only there for a short contract.
Yeah, Yes and no. I mean, let me start out by asking, like, what do you actually do? You mentioned you were freelancing, but you didn't mention in what
Yes.
capacity.
I'm mainly a digital 3D artist, so I'm doing like
Okay.
environments, props, and stuff like that.
Right. So what you would, I mean, it's perfectly fine to tailor a project-based resume. It doesn't necessarily have to be like your traditional sort of an employment tenure. I worked here for 4 years kind of thing. I mean, you can put that. In terms of NDA, you're really getting permission to use some of those assets as part of your portfolio from the organization with whom you actually have the agreement, right? Either as a freelancer or as a consultant. So they're going to have to grant you permission for that. As an artist, obviously, the portfolio is key. And our people ask us these things. If it's, we have obviously anything that's released is not an issue. They can put that up there. But sometimes there's things that they've done that may or may not have been released, or we change direction, and they will ask us if they can use this as part of their portfolio. And 90% of the time we say yes. So it really all depends on how the group feels that you're working for, and what they see is in terms of their own liability for allowing that to happen. Sometimes with licensees or licensed IPs, you can't do that because of the type of agreement that you have in place with them. However, especially if it's something that's their own internal IP that they've developed, they don't really have any reason to say no, right? So that would be the question that I would ask. And then you would simply, again, as an artist, it is portfolio based. We're less concerned with what's on the resume, more concerned with what's in the portfolio.
Right. Okay. And then the only follow up with that is if, say, because I've also heard some people tell me that, like, when it comes to, sharing my portfolio on a job application, it's like because there's lots of people applying, they only have a short amount of time to review the portfolio. So that's why it's like, but if I do want to still showcase the best of my skills and techniques, which is like, for instance, showing breakdowns of how I made my model, like a wireframe and a texture map and work in progress, block out, like, are they able to see that, or are they just going to want to look at the final polished render?
It depends. That's a preference thing, to be honest. In some cases, some hiring managers, yes, they're going to want to see that. Others, no. So you're good to have like kind of your best work. So a lot of the mistake that I see a lot of people making is they just feel that volume is what they need in their portfolio. That's actually not the case. It's showcasing your best. So even if that's just like, 5 or 6 things. And if you're going to provide that level of detail in terms of how you've actually gone about it. I mean, the reality is that if you've been doing this for a few years, we know you know how to do it, right? That there's, we kind of trust that. It's not like a junior fresh out of school where you have to justify that you have the actual skill set to apply. So, it really all depends on who's on the other end of it. Your portfolio should be online. It should be a web link. And generally, more than one person's going to look at it. There's probably going to be 5 or 6. So, that it's not actually getting eyes on your portfolio. Different people may be looking for different things. It's just, as I say, the mistake that most people make is that they include kind of erroneous stuff from school or things from earlier in their career that are not that great. Like, you want to keep it up to date and really only be showing your best work.
Of course. Yeah, because I would also think, like, in terms of presentation, like for me, I've also made like little video reels in the past of compilations of models I've worked on, but then sometimes I'll just basically post like 2D, just basic 2D renders, right? And so, like, in terms of showcasing that, and like, say, if I have a model that's supposed to be for a video game and interactive experience, like, I guess, would it help to showcase that within the gameplay of the game itself?
Yeah, it's great to do that actually. Keep it short though. I'm not one to watch a lot of videos myself. The team will look at them, but like under 30 seconds sort of thing.
Okay, good to know. Thank you very much.
Thanks. These were all great questions, Misha. All right. Do we have any other questions from our audience today? Otherwise, I'll ask some of my own questions.
I was just going to piggyback off of Nisha's questions
and
Jesse's responses. So I think the other thing too is, and I see a lot with junior folks is taking the time to tailor your resume or portfolio piece to the company. So, I'm hiring for a gaming company right now as well, and designers and storytellers and all these kind of visual and creative writers. And, it's a lot easier when I like, just send me the links to all the things, like people who say like, here's my experience specific to writing in crypto, or, hey, based on your website where there's all this visual content, here's some things that are similar in tone, and make it really easy for me to match your skill set, like from a portfolio piece. That might be maybe highlighting and send me a link to a part of your portfolio that's really relevant to my project. And then the same goes for your general resumes, right? Like at Lighthouse Labs, we definitely tell everyone that they should be kind of taking the time to curate your resume. Make sure that experience that you're showcasing on your GitHub accounts, that you're leading with the best foot forward of your best work, but also the most relevant work. If you want to get into, a certain tech stack, make sure that's on the front page of your GitHub account. Don't make me look for that, because we do, especially juniors, we do shuffle through a lot of applications. So the faster you can kind of hit me over the head that your experience matches what I'm asking for. And guess what? It's on the job posting. You know exactly what I'm asking for. It's on our careers website. You know exactly what each of the company does. It just makes it easier for us to say, yeah, or flag it, and it maybe gets sent around. But it just makes it easier for us. Make it easy for the recruiters to know you and your story, and spamming resumes, like that's my biggest, do not waste your time spamming the resumes. You will just have your heart broken. You'll spend all the time spamming. I sent 100 job applications and I never heard back. And it's like, sometimes I get resumes and it's just like, I don't even understand what role they're applying for, why they reached out to me, and there's no cover letter, there's nothing. So just take the time and lead with your best foot.
Or they leave the objective or the cover letter heading for like another company.
A previous company.
Yeah. Pay attention to details.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know, Charlene. All right. Our next question is from Libby, and then we'll take a question from Shan. So Libby first and then Shan.
Okay, hi, thanks for having me on. My name's Libby Robinson. I've been in the tech industry from a sales aspect since the 80s. I'm 59 years old right now. So I've been in some really successful sales roles, but at this stage in my life, I'm looking to move into a customer success role, in that I can capitalize on the relationship building skills that I have. And that was also the part of my previous jobs that I also really enjoyed. So I'm applying for a lot of customer success roles, and I'm finding a lot of them are asking for 2 or 3 years experience. And I'm sure that's because they want to broaden the base of everybody who applies. But I'm not having a lot of luck right now. Since COVID, I've been going to school. I've been taking business analysis at Sauder. And right now I really need to find an income. And so I'm wondering if any of the speakers have any feedback for me in hunting in my customer success sort of mandate.
Great question. Any thoughts?
Yes.
I do, but I'll let someone else. I just finished, so I'll jump in afterwards. Yeah.
I guess I have a follow-up question in that, so do you feel, just your gut feeling, do you feel like you're running into the issue where they're not seeing your previous experience as transferable, or you're running into the issue that they're looking at this massive resume that you have with all your experience and immediately thinking this person's overqualified? Why would they want to do this?
I actually feel it's number 2 because I do get a lot of interviews.
Pare down the resume. Like really, I know it is
maybe, yeah,
but pare down the resume and dial it back in the interview. It's really the best advice that I can give you. There's a fear that comes with depending on who you're dealing with in a hiring position, that they're not going to be able to afford you is one of the things, right? And B, the other, and it's very legitimate that, somebody will come into a workplace and that they do worry that, with a whole bunch of experience, that they're going to immediately try to change the function or not be comfortable following the directive that's there or functioning within kind of a box when it might be a more junior position, right? And that's a reality. So I honestly would say just be measured in your approach to this. You know, I do the same thing. Just as an example, I always hold a part-time job at like a dance studio or a fitness studio or like a ski hill or something, right? I don't tell them about everything that I've done in those interviews to get those jobs, right? I really, I'll kind of glaze over it and say, this is
Right.
what I do full time. This is what I'd like to do part time. But I really focus on talking about the transferable skills that I have that will apply directly to those things. Like, for example, I worked part time cleaning at a yoga studio for a year once because I wanted a free membership because it's expensive. So I know. I was in better shape doing the cleaning than I was ever doing the yoga, though, I will say that, but it's hard work. But,
I bet. That's
again,
awesome.
I kind of focused on just like, the things that I were telling them about how I like to organize things and stuff like that. So you just might have to dial it back is all. I know we all want to put our best foot forward and we really want to because we're proud of what we've done, but it's not always like received the way we want it to be for lack of a better word. So that's really my best advice. I know it kind of sucks, but it's, I think you'll be more successful.
No, that's good advice. That's refreshing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts for Libby?
I'll let Claudia jump in if she's got some specific for this.
I actually think Jessie nailed it. And I like the follow-up questions that she had and really focusing on that transferable skills. You have extremely great experience. So being able to market that, showcase that to the employer, I think will be very, very beneficial. And to be completely honest, when we look at resumes from an employer standpoint, we have about 30 seconds to look at it and really see what's there. So if it's a 10-page resume, that's something that's going to kind of hinder your chances. So be direct, be quick. That's what we're looking for. Put your best foot forward.
Awesome.
Okay.
I hope your question was answered, Libby, and you got some good tips out of that.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
I'd also just say for Libby and anyone who's kind of changing careers, you also have to kind of condense your story in general. So some of it, like Libby right away, my question would be along those same lines of like, why do you want to do this job? Like the reason we put 2 years experience is because that's kind of all that's really required to be successful at the job. It doesn't mean someone with 15 years experience can't do it. Of course they can. The question is, why do you want to? So just kind of making sure you're leading with the story of why you're looking to basically take a step back. Like that's how it's seen for me. I'm like, whoa, you were super senior at all these titles. I know you would have earned tons of money. I hire salespeople in tech too. And then now you want this like entry-level job that's a smaller pay cut. So if it's because you're looking for a different lifestyle, if it's because you're, you've served your time and you're just looking for passion and you just want to be productive in kind of the, last 10 years of your work career, cool, like lead with that story. And just like people who maybe switching from the automotive industry, like lead with what brought you to and why is that similar. And I think it comes down to that storytelling side of things.
That's great.
Awesome.
Great advice, ladies. I haven't heard this before. This is awesome.
Okay, I noticed in the chat that Shan has a question. Shan, did you want to jump on camera and ask your question and unmute your mic and ask your question to our guest speakers?
Is it okay if I leave my camera off?
Oh yeah, you can leave your camera off.
All right. Thank you guys for this opportunity. So as stated before, I'm currently in Jamaica and my husband and I are trying to immigrate through one of the PMP programs. He's a software engineer for 9 years and we've had quite a number of interviews, but so far we haven't gotten that yes that we need. And the program will enable us to come to Canada very quickly. But as I said, so far we have not gotten any yes from any interviews. We actually did an interview by WeABT, actually did an interview with FISPAN, but nothing came of that. But I heard Carlene's recommendations to reach out on LinkedIn and all these good stuff, which we have been doing as well. We've been asking persons to have a conversation with us to try and help us to see what is it that these recruiters are looking for. But I feel like we've exhausted all of these options. So is there any additional tips that you guys can give us per se that we can apply to our job search?
Great question.
Where are you running into issues where is he, running into issues in the interview process? Are you making it through technical interviews? Like, I'm just curious because that's gonna change what we tell you.
Okay, most of them who were pre-screening and first interview.
Okay.
But we haven't gotten much technical interview. I'm not sure if the technical aspect was not a part of it.
It's
But
usually
that
not
we have,
high
yes.
level, but
Mhm.
okay, so that tells me that one of two things could be happening. One of them is there's something going wrong. So we may need to look at what, how the questions are being answered. I have no idea what questions were being asked. I can take a guess because they're pretty much the same, but for everybody. But the other thing is, you're competing with local candidates, right? So depending on the level, depending on the skill set, a company will typically hire locally, and in some cases have to, before they will actually move forward and hire somebody from abroad. That's changing in our current climate, right? Like people are a lot more receptive, but it's still not totally there. So do you happen to know what his skill set is? Maybe that's asking a bit much. I don't know.
Yes, I do know. C Sharp, .NET, Java. He has some experiences with Jira.
Yeah.
That's all I can remember off the top of my head, but we've been applying along those lines, C Sharp, .NET Core, things like
Right.
that.
So that's something I can tell you. We don't actually hire that skill set where I work in game development. So casual games they will sometimes, but not in our type of like PC-based or console-based products. And we get a lot of applications from unemployed Java developers. So it could
Yeah, we
very well
actually
be that
heard
it's
from somebody
competitive.
from another game company. We actually heard from another game company that said they don't use C Sharp, but they
Yeah.
did that. They're the ones who directed us to BC Jobs. So that's how
Yeah.
we got to know BC Jobs. Yes.
It's a good a good directive to give, to be honest. Like that was good advice. So all I can speak to really at this point is that it really think about what's going on in that phone interview, think about the local competition, and at the same time that particular skill set is something I'm seeing a lot of people apply to jobs for which they're not qualified with. So that tells me that it's not necessarily the most in demand skill set. But Claudia and Charlene probably have a lot more perspective on this than I do because I'm sure they deal with that.
Yeah, I guess just to add on to what Jesse was saying, if it's in that first round of interviews that we're running into some issues, it might not be on the technical side of things. At FISPAN, we do look for Java, CNET, the ones that you mentioned. So he's maybe not able to showcase his skills on the technical side. There might be something that needs to be reviewed on that first phone interview for us, for example, that first round. Maybe the types of questions they're asking are just not what he's used to. There could be a lot of different things. So that you can connect with me offline and we can kind of go more in depth, because I did hear that you mentioned he applied to FISPAN, so I'm happy to look for your husband there. But yeah, there could be a number of different things there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for your questions. Misha, you've got your hand raised. Feel free to ask your next questions to our speakers.
Yeah, I was just quickly asking and I was getting a part of a response from Jesse here, but basically about art tests, because I have also applied to art tests in the past, and sometimes like they only give you a specific slot of time, which was for me about a week, and I did the best that I could, but then sometimes it feels like maybe I kind of rushed it a little bit. So maybe there's probably a better way to kind of prepare myself for an art test so I can be successful if I ever get one again.
Well, just so everybody else can hear what we were talking about, we had the whole DMs going on here, but art tests, we don't give them anymore, to be honest. We used to once upon a time, though, and ours traditionally were 5 business days that we would give for an art test.
Okay.
We're not going to make anybody work on the weekend. We don't do it in real life, so why would we do that? But the thing is that what we're giving in terms of a timeline is representative of what we would require in the job. So in some cases, environment art, the turnaround was even a little bit faster, Misha. So if you're not able to produce what's being required, again, in the length of time, and we're not estimating this off of an 8-hour day either, obviously recognizing that our staff has other things and other tasks that they're doing. So, it means that you may not that's why they may be passing that over, right? Because usually we even pad it and give some extra time, recognizing that people have lives. So that's all that is. And again, for artists is competitive, right? There's a lot of colleges in the local area that are pumping out lots of people from game design and art programs. So it is something we see a lot of, but those timelines are pretty accurate for what it should take to be able to produce something to the quality and spec that's been requested, because as a commercial artist, it's based on reality. In terms of preparing, there's not a whole lot you can do to prepare other than just continue working on your craft, right? It should become second nature eventually. There's tutorials out there, things like that. Look at games for the companies for which you're applying, and maybe try and replicate some of that as well, right? Because that's going to be close to, like for us, we always work on the same types of products. They're all action-based first-person shooter kind of adventure thingies, right? So there's not a whole lot of variety there. That's really, the best thing that I can tell you. It's kind of hard to prepare for a test that is different for every company.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope that's helpful.
All right. I saw, Shan, you had your hand raised again. I don't know if you still had a question.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for our panelists? I'm just checking in the chat here. I think we've answered all the questions here in the chat. Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, I'll ask some of my own while you're thinking of some. And maybe just for our three guest panelists here today, maybe you could tell us a bit about hiring positions that are currently available in your company. Like, are you hiring, for example, like more in sales or marketing, or you have more tech roles? And for these roles, are you looking more for like junior talent or senior talent, or any thoughts on that?
I can hop in quickly. I posted our job board previously in the chat, so definitely take a look there. But we're hiring in almost every single department, from business analysts to our client experience team, on the developer side, software developers, software engineers, quality assurance, really, you name it, it's all there. And in terms of levels, also, again, we're looking at junior, intermediate, and senior. I will say that typically our junior positions are filled with our co-op students, who we have a really good co-op program. So students who work with us for 4 to 8 months, and then they finish their degree, they might continue on full time. So those are typically our junior positions, and then we'll hire externally for intermediate or senior positions.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. And do your co-op programs, do you have partnerships with universities or colleges here in Vancouver?
Yes, all across Canada, actually.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah,
definitely. So Mogo is hiring quite a few positions. I just threw the job board in there. We are definitely hiring probably more on the intermediate side for kind of tech roles. However, we did just hire our first 2 Lighthouse Labs grads. That was I only have about a 6-month contract with them. I'm infiltrating. So we hopefully will be hiring more junior folks. We're kind of getting our junior program up and going. It's really hard to hire juniors. And you need to make sure that in order to bring juniors on board, that you're ready to set them up for success. So if you're junior and you're kind of here, not seeing a lot of roles, some of it's just that, it's a responsible thing to do sometimes when companies don't hire juniors, because on the flip side, especially working for startups who often just want someone in the door quick and don't really understand, they hire juniors and give them way too much responsibility and not enough mentorship and not enough coaching, which doesn't set anyone up for success. So junior, but we are getting going for Mogo. The one couple roles for like those folks, because I think we have a variety of backgrounds here on this call, is Mogo has quite a few customer facing roles that are much different levels, just really great customer service experience. So we're a fintech company. We have a card and some loan stuff. So we have folks that we call them MoPros. So they're Mogo product specialists, and they work with our clients to kind of be onboarded as well as kind of work through any technical stuff. And then we have folks that are credit recovery or collections, which sounds like a really scary word, but it's like, you know, there's no baseball bats on your desk. Like it's about working with people and educating our consumers. And there's actually some really great commission to be made if you're kind of someone that can go and bridge those conversations. And these groups are great ways to get into other areas of products. So it's all on our website. Those roles specifically, we hire every month. They're quite large roles. We need lots of people. The more users we onboard is a direct correlation to having people support them. And then there are quite a few technical, tons of marketing roles that's kind of junior to intermediate. So Mogo is very much in a hiring spree, and they're going to be growing really fast. So definitely keep an eye on Mogo. And then CTO.ai is a little bit more really working on sales and kind of like solution engineers. So it's this really interesting intersection of like sales and like development. So if you are a developer and you want to make a lot of money, definitely maybe consider if you want to be kind of customer facing and interested in going to sales engineering and solution architecting. They are, it's very exciting. It's very like lots of cool problems and very lucrative career path. Anytime you can directly impact revenue, your like money salary range goes up. It's why sales is so lucrative, because you have a direct impact on the business's ability to bring money in the door. And for devs, you have a direct impact on the thing going out the door to make money. So that's why those roles tend to be very, the senior end of it can be a very good career path money wise.
Cool. Yeah, I've never heard of sales engineering. That does sound very exciting and good opportunities. And what about at Piranha Games? What positions do you find you're hiring more for frequently or these days?
Yeah, right now, design, it seems. We're hiring a handful of level designers, as well as our UI design team. And just on that piece, I see a lot of people coming from the web development space, looking to transfer into games. That's hard to do. We're looking specifically for game-related UI or some kind of background or knowledge there. It's a different thing. 3D art as well. We're hiring character artists. We'll be opening a new modeler, VFX artist. So there's a lot going on the art and design side right now. Later in the year, we do anticipate expanding our software development team, among other things. So yeah, there's a lot, unfortunately. Once I can announce the project, I'll have a full roster of things to post, but we're kind of like stuck in a holding pattern for a minute. So, and part of that is being part of like a larger entity. We all have to get on the same page with this. So yeah, that's what we anticipate for the next year.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's good to know. And do we have any more questions from the audience? I've got a pile of questions I can ask, so feel free to raise your hand anytime, and we can get you on screen here to ask your questions. Another question of mine is, and kind of going back to like the theme of our panel today is networking, and if any of you have any more networking tips for our job candidates today. I know Jesse mentioned some great resources earlier. I think I've already forgotten the name. It started with Art something.
ArtStation. Yeah.
ArtStation.
I put it in the chat too. I did.
Perfect.
I did put it
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about LinkedIn, but if you have any other like suggestions or tips on networking, could be like within the industry or getting your foot in the door of the industry, like with the gaming industry, fintech, computer software. Yeah, feel free to share.
It's hard because there's no, like, we used to have like conventions and events and stuff like that, and those are not happening. And honestly, no shade to the people that are throwing these like digital conferences and stuff, but it's not for me. Like I have a distraction problem, and I will be like, oh yeah, that thing that's been going on for 8 hours, I got other stuff to do. Like it's very hard for me to engage in that. Thankfully, I'm not alone. I do have someone with me, Janet, as I mentioned earlier, that will do that. So it's not as good. Or conventions, we used to bring in volunteers, people who were interested in working for the company to help us out with things. They'd meet us, they'd hang out with us, they'd socialize. I'm looking forward to the day that, things like that happen again. Same as job fairs. That was always a good opportunity. I'm a fan of the traditional job fair where you like go out and meet people. Um, so yeah, I don't have a good answer. That wasn't that wasn't really, I don't know how helpful that is, but I'm just like, I'm hopeful for the day that we can have those in-person events again in large numbers, and people have an opportunity to kind of, see what everybody's about and talk to people, and we can actually get face-to-face time. But yeah, maybe the other two ladies have a better idea in terms of, digital networking. I'm not very good at myself, so.
Yeah, I think it is a lot easier in person, but it depends. It might be easier if you're that personality type. I know a lot of used to coach the Lighthouse Lab students to go to those career fairs, and it was very intimidating. I think the big thing is making connection, and I'll just use a really good example. I'm here right now and watching the chat, and like Jessie mentioned that she was having a side conversation with Misha. Libby has reached out to me on LinkedIn and sent a resume. Like, these people, had that extra courage to come forward in this room to not just listen, but to like make that connection. And they're getting I'm about to review Libby's resume and give her resume feedback. Like, how valuable is that? Right. And so I think that just, there are these opportunities out there right now, there are virtual conferences happening. And I think if you can really connect with a person in a really authentic way, people are willing to help, right? People are willing to give their time. And I think to me, it all comes down to intention. What doesn't work is getting the spams of the 2-sentence emails, or kind of this expectation of like, if everyone spammed me their resume and was like, can you please review my resume? I would love to. I don't have the time to review everyone's resume from that coaching session, but maybe if you found a way to connect with me in like an authentic way, based on what you know of me, hearing me talk, based on my LinkedIn, maybe based on the companies that I work for, like there's just a bigger chance that I'm going to be like, oh, okay, like I'm going to connect with you about something specific. Or, if you are someone that's that has experience in NFT gaming or kind of some of the stuff, that then like reach out to me specific about that. And like, we can start a real connection and then kind of develop the relationship from there. Realistically, it's probably going to be a pretty transactional relationship. We're all really busy and we don't have the time, but I do think there's opportunity. I think it takes a little bit more hustle, takes a little bit more effort. It's not a guarantee. Like, just because you email someone a very thoughtful and organic and genuine email, you still might get a no-show. And it's just because, everyone's busy and it's hard. It's really hard. Like, I wish I could have a full-time job that I'm still figuring out now that I'm on my own with consulting. How can I just have a full-time job that lets me network and connect with people? Because I love it. I get energy from that, but I can't do that on top of the day-to-day tasks I have to do to check the boxes for my job to get done by the end of the day. Right. So yeah, I think don't forget we're humans at the end of this. At the end of the email, there's a human, and maybe going back to some of those human principles that we had not too long ago, not in the distant past.
It's true. If there's someone in front of me, I'll help them, but the trick is getting in front of me. Like,
That's a nice way to summarize it.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
Oh, Jeff's got a co-op question for Claudia. Jeff, do you want to unmute your mic and ask Claudia your question?
Yeah. Hello. I just checked out the Bamboo website you shared, and I saw the co-op. And anyways, I just applied. But I'm just curious that if you guys are open to like not university grad, or even though I am the Lighthouse Bootcamp grad, do you guys also have an opening?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So we typically, for our co-op specific postings, those are for students who are looking for a 4 or 8 month internship type thing, and then they'll be going back to school. That being said, in the past, we have had candidates who have just graduated or who are going into a new industry, and they do show promise. And so they would do a non-co-op internship. So they would work with us for 4 months, and we can kind of assess their skills, they get experience, and then at the end, we might hire them full-time if it is the fit for both the company and the candidate. So definitely, if you saw one that is interesting to you, I'm glad that you applied, but we can do that even if you're not a student.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Great to know. Okay, any more questions from our audience today? Otherwise, maybe I'll ask one last question for our guest speakers. Okay, so maybe last question from me. We already talked about some great resume tips, and I thought maybe you could share some interview tips. I know personally, when I've attended interviews, I just kind of go numb. My mind goes blank, and I feel like I'm not actually myself, and I'm in a weird state whenever I go to an interview. And so interview nerves, how can these be avoided, and what kind of stands out to you as an ideal candidate during an interview?
I guess I'll quickly start. And what I found has been really good is obviously communication. That's something that we look for, just being able to talk to different types of people. At FISPAN, we have a lot of different types of people, different stakeholders. So really being able to show that you can talk to those different stakeholders, have conversation, that's one thing we look for, but also showing that you're excited to be there, excited to potentially work for the company. I've been in a lot of interviews where you can tell that this candidate has been to 10 other interviews and they're drained. They don't want to be there. They feel like they have to, and so they won't really engage. They won't show that they're excited to be part of your team, and that really kind of puts a damper on the entire interview process. So just be excited to be there. Maybe don't schedule 10 interviews in one day. Just be excited to talk to that person or that employer.
Great tip. Yes, that's a good one.
I think just generally being prepared. So sometimes we like to think that interviews are this big, scary vacuum. And so just to kind of shed behind the curtain, interviews aren't designed to trick you. Like, I mean, we hear these I think they're horror stories. I don't agree with this interview style, like stressing candidates out for the sake of stressing them out and asking like, why are manholes round and not square to work at Microsoft? Like, I don't know. I can't speak to those type of interviews, but for most companies that I've worked with, it's really just a way to try to understand how the skill set you have matches the job we need done. And really the best thing you can do to prepare is just know your skill set. And the great news is there's so many clues in that job posting. So the job posting is literally drafted to help match make. It's like a dating profile. When I worked at Lighthouse Labs, I always used to use dating analogies. It's really like what I'm looking for. I'm telling you what I'm looking for. So tell me how you're close to that thing on your resume. And then that gets us on the date together in the interview. Then the computer actually does that matching. So just really be specific about how you're like the thing I'm looking for, and then be able to talk about it. Right. And sometimes, we try to get those honest answers by being like, oh, we ask you to tell us of an experience, a very specific time that you did the thing that we're assessing for. Well, the thing we're assessing for is likely on the job posting. It's likely tell me about the time you built something in JavaScript, because that's our tech stack. Tell me about a time where you had a tight deadline, because we say that we're a fast-paced environment. There's so many clues in the job posting. And then what you can do is start thinking about those experiences. What are some things where you've been really proud? What are some of those problems that you've solved and like had a good outcome? What are some things you learned? And just kind of write those experiences, almost like journaling or reflecting on your career to date. And it doesn't have to be in software. We talked about those transferable skills. I think it was Jeff gave this beautiful analogy of how problem solving in automotive is really the same as problem solving in software development. It's just using different tools. And that's so perfect. So I think the biggest thing I see is one, just being afraid of it and feeling like you have no control or can't prepare or don't know, like going in blind. And then the other thing is just preparing and kind of knowing your experience, and don't be afraid to ask. Like I've seen a trend in HR that I agree with, of like kind of giving candidates the questions ahead of time. I actually prefer to do that, especially if I'm hiring like HR. It's like, I will ask you to tell me about a time where you had a difficult employee situation, because I want you to have time to think of a good example, but you can probably anticipate some of those questions that they're asking. And don't be afraid to be like, hey, what is interviewing covering? How can I prepare for the interview? Like, who am I meeting with? If you didn't get all that information, again, those are more clues to kind of anticipate what those questions might be, and you can then prepare. But the biggest thing is make sure you do prepare. That's honestly where I see people fluff up the worst, is like they didn't prepare for whatever reason. Sometimes they didn't think they needed to, which is really bad. Sometimes they just got busy and they go in flustered and they're caught off guard, and then they're just like reeling. So yeah.
Great tips.
Yeah.
Yes.
Be yourself.
Yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, like Charlene's completely right. Behavioral interviews are common. Go in with an arsenal of stories based on your experience. You should have an answer to a question. I just want to point out the cultural component to an interview. So we have, as I mentioned, I have a recruiter. I don't even deal with a candidate until the very, very final end of the interview process, and I will sit there and have a cultural conversation with them. I want to make sure that you are going to enjoy working at Piranha Games, because we're a little strange, in a good way, in the best possible way. Yeah, it's companies are different and they all have different cultural values, so and they all function very specifically, and we actually everybody has their flaws as well, and somebody who may come from a very heavily structured environment coming into an organization like ours may not love that. We're very kind of like freewheeling, we give people a lot of latitude in terms of what they do. So, really that conversation has to happen as well. And what you can, the best thing you can do there is be honest, ask lots of questions, use it as an opportunity to dig in for yourself as well, because chances are once you're having that conversation, you're at the end of the process. People are asking you if you have questions, what you want to talk about, what you'd like to know about the organization. Those are all very good signs that, and we'd like to know who you are authentically. One of the things that really kind of gets under my skin is when people tell me what they think I want to hear. It's a very good way to get yourself exited from the process. It's really important to be yourself. Obviously, the socially appropriate dialed back version of ourselves that we all are when we first meet people, right? But get to know us, and then later on be a little crazy if you like. But yeah, just it's really important to take that time. And if it's not the right place for you, that's okay too. Maintain that relationship, because there may be a referral in it for you. I do refer candidates around if I'm saying, this person just might not do well here. However, I know this other organization that's hiring. Let me give them your resume, and that does happen. So,
oh, awesome!
Yeah,
great. Oh, well, thanks for sharing your thoughts on and interview tips for our candidates today. This is some really valuable feedback, and I'm sure they'll put that to good use. Okay, we're taking any final questions from our audience. If we don't have any final questions, then I'm going to start to wrap up this panel for today. So I don't see any more questions coming in, so it's safe to assume that I can start to wrap up. So Claudia, Charlene, and Jesse, I'll let you add any last remarks or words of advice that you would like to share with our audience today. So if you have anything that you want them to know specifically, now's the time. So whoever wants to go first can go first.
I guess just don't be afraid, put yourself out there. The worst that can happen is that you get a rejection, but you might gain some valuable feedback in that process. So don't be afraid to just try, apply, reach out to people. That's the most that you can do. So do that.
Awesome.
I don't have any more advice. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who came here today. It's it's your time, and I hope that you are walking away with something.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I'll kind of say a combination. Absolutely, again, good for you for being in the room. You took a great step to kind of learn, and hopefully you're walking away with some advice. And then, yeah, like Claudia said, reach out. And then my thing is always reach out in a curated way. Don't spam ever. You never will get results from spam. Take the time, update your resume, send the link that's appropriate, update the cover letter, send the, like, you know, it can be 90% copy and pasted, but add those elements of human connection when you are reaching out. And, you know, although it's not a guarantee, it's hard. Cold calling's hard. Being a junior is hard. These things are just hard, but you'll increase your chances. And just also 4 to 6 months to get a job is normal, is average, especially if you're junior. If you're just starting your career, it can easily take 4 to 6 months. It's a little bit of hard work and a little bit of luck. And so, you know, just understand that it's a process, and keep on whacking away at it.
Yeah, that's a good time frame to keep in mind.
Hey, sorry, I have one last quick question.
Okay, go ahead, Misha.
What another thing that I've gotten from previous employers in the past has been a letter of recommendation, and I think this could also apply for students. If they get a letter of recommendation from a teacher, how do you guys look at those in terms of applications? And would you highly recommend that more people send that in along with their resume and cover letter?
I honestly don't look at them.
No, neither would I.
You like, you're not giving, like, it's like a reference, like, unless they were specifically maybe talking in more depth about a project you did that was relevant, like you worked on this project and, you know, you don't have as a portfolio piece to give. But I mean, yeah.
At the reference checking stage of the process, we will look at these things. I mean, at that point, we've decided we're going to hire you, right? Unless something goes horribly wrong. But, you know, in the early stages, like, I'll be completely honest and tell you that I don't read cover letters either. I'm so sorry, but I don't.
I do read cover letters. I do read I scan if they're in the email, because I want the story. That's actually where I get most, like, I feel like I learn who you are in the cover letter if you put any thought into it. And then I go to your resume and sometimes get confused because there's a disconnect between the resume you've sent to 20 people and the custom cover letter you give me. So I will scan a cover letter. I just want to, like.
Good for you. I am the worst that way. I haven't for years and years and years. Literally, I think the last time I read a cover letter in detail was like 2008. I know, right? I will just ask the question when I get somebody on the phone, like, let's figure out who you are. But the resume is enough for me. And honestly, I'm very forgiving about resumes too. I'm like looking for, like, can you do this? But yeah, during the reference checking process, feel free to send all of your letters and whatnot. But in the beginning, it will get passed over and it's just wasted effort. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your question, Misha. All right.
Oh, I do want to just context the reference, because I feel bad, because I know that, like, that's a tool that they use. I will say, maybe if it's specific to the industry and, like, within my wheelhouse, like if I'm in the tech startup scene, it's a small town here in Vancouver. And yes, if a founder of another tech company wrote a letter and I recognize the company, maybe I recognize the name, it's in my industry specifically, said that Misha worked with me, school a little bit, they're going to have to really say you were, like, the top student in the class. I might take that more, but if you're sending me a letter from, like, the teacher at the average college, like, again, maybe if you're at Stanford or MIT, might have a little more clout here in Vancouver because we're a smaller town. But if it's like an average teacher that's unrelated. So again, it's all about that, like, curated matching happening. Just to kind of, like, not totally discount it, because I also do provide a lot of them for folks, especially if, like, they've, like, wrapped up a contract or whatever. But again, it would have to be very specific to the industry and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Charlene. Okay, so this is the end of our panel today. Claudia, Charlene, and Jesse, it was an absolute pleasure to have all three of you on our panel. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules today. And if anyone's looking for work or new opportunities, please check out CTO.ai, FISPAN, Mogo, and Piranha Games hiring pages. I believe the links have been posted here in the chat. And don't forget to join us later this month on February 22nd for our next guest speaker panel with UBC Solder, GeoComply, and IOGO. This winter, we'll be running the series every 3 weeks. So you'll get to meet speakers from various industries a little more frequently. And lastly, you can always shoot me an email with any questions to events@bcjobs.ca. So thank you all so much for coming today, and see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.